We don't know.
Hi guys. We have a few more signed up, but we're going to get started. I'm Debra Krukowski.
Krysti, Reece.
And we did a breakout session on creative teaching techniques and improving engagement and retention in the classroom at the fall workshop, because retention was the topic there. And we were on a panel discussion. So there was 4 of us. Krysti and I are both from the ultrasound program or the CMS program. And so we got very little time to really go into things. And so we decided for these sessions we would break into 2 and 2 and share our experiences with you. If you don't mind, Nancy, I know that's Nancy, and she's from radiology. Can you tell me what area you teach in?
Education.
Okay. How about you?
Psychology.
Psychology?
Automotive.
Automotive. Okay, so we got a variety of things. And so we talk about some things that we've applied to our program, how to apply them to other disciplines as well. And if you guys have any questions, just when we ask for questions, please stop and we'll have some time, a little breakout at the end to do some stuff. I don't know. I'm just going to sit over there. Okay, that's fine. Student engagement, everybody knows this slide. Anyone? We know that as we have the students in front of us, our job is to entertain them and educate them at the same time. And so we want to be able to keep their attention. And so if we don't have their attention, we know we're not going to get to success. Okay. So 3 decades ago, we wanted to know who engages who. Do the students engage us? Do we engage the students? New technology has enabled us to engage in creative ways. And that is not the same. And so as we walk from classroom to classroom, everybody's engaging the students a little differently. But the principle remains the same. So we focus on retention. Okay, that was the key of this in the fall workshop as a staple in recent years. We want to say that we want to keep the retention the same or deplete it. We all know that the population at Triton right now is not increasing and not changing, actually going down a little bit because the population is getting older. And the big thing is we need more students, There may not be more students, that we might not be able to get that huge increase that we're looking for, but what we can do is keep the students we have in front of us. So as faculty, we all want to think about how can we keep the number we start with, that number. And yes, we can't keep them if they're not in the needs or the objectives of the course, but how can we give them the resources to do that? So we have to think of a process to keep the students engaged, and student success has increased with more student engagement. If they get enthusiastic about your lecture, about your activities in the classroom, they don't want to miss the classroom. And so they're going to be there versus, everything they say is in the book. You know, they didn't really grasp me last week, why go? And so we have to use our self-assessment to look at that. All right, so this process for us sort of started. Krysti was an adjunct faculty member and 5 years ago, and came in as a full-time faculty member, and I had been teaching cross-sectional anatomy for a long time. And it was a 5 credit hour class, so we had 2.5 hour sessions each week, and it was mundane. You know, I'm a pretty engaging faculty member in the traditional ways, doing those types of things, but I just felt like I was stretching it to, I wanted to finish something, and I was like, well, no, we got more time. But how else can you talk about anatomy is really what it came down to. It didn't have a lab in the class, so I was fine. Well, Krysti and I both have a little bit of,
Thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, thinking outside the box type of thing. So it was great to have her join me. And I said, you know what I'd really like is one day of me just pounding out traditional lectures, getting them engaged, thinking, looking at diagrams, using them on my PowerPoint. But the second day, an activity day, and it wasn't a lab. We would bring models into the room, and so I said, what do you think about that? She said, I'll do the second day, you do the first day. I said, okay. So the material was crucial to long-term comprehension. So as a sonographer, you can't forget the liver because you took the test and you passed it. Okay, and so we have to, you wouldn't want them working on you, right? And so that lack of enthusiasm, we needed to get that up. They had a false sense of security as they listened to us because the prerequisite to the program is anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. And so everything sounds familiar, and as in high schools are giving them more sciences as well, they're like, oh yeah, I know that, I know. So they didn't feel like they had to read before they came to class. And so how can we get past that? Because if they weren't preparing to come to class, and they were just sort of mundanely listening, the long-term comprehension, that building and layering wasn't there. So we had to extend the knowledge, but still go back and say, you took anatomy and physiology 4 years ago. How much do you remember? Okay, and so in breaking anatomy from big to cross-sectional layers, like a loaf of bread, we had to make sure that they still knew the basics. Okay, so we started thinking less traditional and how they could enjoy learning, and that was our goal. Okay, so we thought engaging students, we were doing it well, but the long-term comprehension still was not there. There was a lack of connection between the material and what they wanted. We thought to team teach it one day traditional and the other day totally interactive. We almost instantly saw the students coming in enthusiastic, not just for Krysti's day, but for my day too, because they knew that if they were engaged in my class, came prepared, that next day, that, it's every other day, but the next time they met with Krysti, she had activities and things they had to complete. And so they knew they had to really pay attention to have the fun and the activities the second day and get the credit for whatever she was asking them to perform. And so it wasn't just an open day. She had goals and objectives for them to meet. So we started applying more of the same throughout our curriculum. So every semester we were going, oh, how about this class we do this? And we started just layering it on. They're sort of used to us now. Sort of. Yes. Okay, so students playing a part in their assessment isn't something new. We've all heard, flip the classroom. I'm thinking it was brought as a workshop thing 10 years ago. Okay, and so it's a term we sort of loosely use, like, oh, flip the, what does that mean? Well, there's lots of different ways. So students need to know they're going to be assessed. Instructors should assess them. They should assess themselves and their peers to assess them. And when they have that accountability, they're going to take it a little bit more seriously. So there has to be some form of assessment, even though you're trying to be creative and learn. It forces them to engage and be more prepared for the activities. It minimizes the test anxiety. Okay, if they know this is what's going to happen, then they're prepared for it. Okay, and I'm not saying give up unannounced quizzes. I am an unannounced quiz queen. I teach physics. It's the class everybody hates, and I do it. But I always tell my students, I get the thank yous after they have to take a national board. And when they take that and pass, I get thank you cards saying, thank you so much for those unannounced quizzes that they were swearing about me in the hallway. Okay, because they knew it forced them to become prepared. So what we want to try to do is, how can we get them to be engaged before they even come to us? Students felt as if the material they thought mastered through their success, and they learned to correct their mistakes before the final assessment, whether it be a final exam, an interactive project. They were correcting themselves, but oh no, because she's going to expect this from us. And we saw them starting to sort of be more accountable for what they were doing.
Right.
Krysti.
So I'm going to start with, or just give kind of add to your toolbox of techniques when it comes to student engagement. Give you some examples of what I've done in the classroom and maybe ways that you can apply it. At the end, we're going to have you do a little group work because it wouldn't be about engagement if I just talked to you the whole time. But I'm just going to give you some examples and maybe ways that you can apply it in your setting. So flipping the classroom, like Deb said, is no new terminology, no real new technique. It's really just trying to figure out how it works in your discipline. It really does foster the student, though, as an expert. So it takes them from those lower level Bloom's taxonomies, as far as just remembering facts and memorizing, and brings them up more to an evaluating and analyzing, which is, that deeper level of thinking. I really like this quote from the University of Washington. The main goal of flipping a class is to cultivate deeper, richer learning experiences for students when the instructor is present to coach them and guide them. So that's what we all want. We want them to have that deep, rich thinking and understanding of what we're teaching. So having them become the expert in the classroom is one way to kind of foster that, that way of thinking. Being a coach, facilitator, we've heard that, to guide them. So not give them the answers. That's one thing I'm really big on. Everybody comes, well, what is this? I know there's a correct answer, and they want it immediately. Just kind of that instant gratification. Sometimes it's better, you bring it back to me. Oh, look, let me know, research it, things like that.
Saying things like, do you have your book? Let's look it up. And sometimes they look at you like, well, don't you know that? I'm like, let's find it, because I'm not always going to be here for you.
Right. All right, next one. All right, so ideas for flipping the classroom. Again, just a couple of things that I've personally done or ideas that I've had are mini presentations. So videos in the summer. I've kind of dropped it a little bit, but we had them do mini videos of them doing or performing an exam. So they gave a little short PowerPoint presentation as a small group. They would take a video, them demonstrating the skill, and then there would be a short discussion afterwards, and we would go over them in class, and it really made them kind of a specialist in exactly what they were studying. And then it was nice. It was a little bit fun, you know, for them to be just instead of typing up protocol, to be able to really apply it and act it out. PowerPoints, so having them create the PowerPoints. One of the flipped classroom techniques that I use is I come in randomly, and I'm actually doing it next week. Here is your topic, and I make sure I have computers for them. This group is this, this is this, this is this. Go make 3 slides for a PowerPoint, and you will be presenting it in 45 minutes. Okay, it puts them under pressure, yes, but if they've read and were prepared for class, then that's a way that they could, on the spot, work together in a group, be cohesive, and still get the material for it. Now, I do give PowerPoint ones for them to create that are a little bit long-term, more long-term, but I do like to do the short ones too, just to make sure.
Yeah, what I also find is to let them know we don't want you to copy it right out of the book. Look at it, interpret it with your classmate in your group, and come up with what you think it means. Otherwise, they're just copy and pasting things.
Yeah, so that's another thing for sure. That's an action. Have them do the PowerPoints. I always have a backup PowerPoint. So at the end, I just recap, like, here's the one that I did, because they're not going to be as cohesive as yours. You know, when you have 3 and 3 and 3, it's not going to flow as easily as yours would. So, but it does get them involved. And again, coming prepared, because we never know if she's going to make me do something on the spot, I think helps them kind of interact. Creating questions. So I have them usually as a review session, whether it's a PowerPoint questions, they all put it into the PowerPoint, or they make flashcards, things like that. Helps them get involved because then they're looking at the material, really understanding it, and then if there's a mistake, usually I review them before the class, but if there's a mistake, then I can catch it and correct it for them. So their name's right on there, and I was looking at your cards, here's why this isn't this way. The double bonus to that is also that with those, they get a little sympathy for how hard it is to create a test question sometimes.
Sometimes their questions are harder than ours are.
Yes.
I'm like, oh man, you're a toughie. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to take your test.
Yeah. Where did you come up with that? So that is another way to kind of engage, and they have a little bit of fun with it, and they always love review sessions right before a test, so it helps to just kind of recap the unit. And demonstrations, it doesn't have to just be in a video. It could be, you know, ours is scanning in a lab, so it's a little more applicable that way, but if there's a technique or something specific, a skill that you need to have them demonstrate to you, that is flipping the classroom. I showed you how to do something, now I'm going to step back and have you show me, whether it's individual or, again, to the classmates. Group activities, so those can be small, they can be large group, they can be presentations. This is just an example of a group activity that we had from our Blackboard. I just kind of put it over. Students will be broken into groups of 4 or 5 and assigned specific discussion activity related to communication. And then I gave them very, very clear instructions as to what to do, that there would be a rubric available. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. And that there would be group and self-evaluation. The biggest thing as far as facilitating group work, everybody says, oh, group work, they're not going to do their job, or I'm going to have to do all the work, or I'm just going to sit back and wait till someone else does it. The biggest thing on our end is making sure we facilitate it to the best of our ability. I just kind of put some tips or best practices as far as facilitating those group activities. Set the expectations. This is what I want from you. Okay. Promoting respect. So if it's in making sure that they're respectful in their communication with their classmates, having established roles. So pick who's going to be your leader, who's going to be responsible. So if you set that as far as your expectations, then it helps to facilitate kind of them setting up their group dynamics. Not someone taking over, but at least setting up the dynamics. Maintaining a presence, though. They have to know you're still there. Otherwise, they don't use the discussion board, and they think you're not looking at it. So knowing you're still there, like maybe chiming in and saying, oh, I was reading through your board. Did you think of this? And
Yeah, or
stepping back.
Conversation's going in the wrong direction, redirect. You know?
Redirect, but don't dictate. So facilitate, don't dictate is something that I think is very, very important. Because if you're giving them group work, you're trying to have them set up a dynamic. If you're just dictating it, then there's no dynamic being formed naturally. Learning how to work as a group. They're not learning those communication skills, whether it's electronic or face-to-face group work. And then reflection and feedback. So who did all the work? Did someone take over? You know, what part did you complete? Did you feel like you did your part? Those types of questions as a reflection survey or something they can complete. You know, again, self-reflection and group reflection. You know, so those are just kind of some tips when it comes to group activities. There's tons of things you can do. Discussion boards related to patient care. When I do the group work in our second day of cross-sectional, it's here's a model. Here are the objectives as far as answering goes. I need everybody's name on it. I need all of the answers answered, and I need it submitted to me at the end of class.
Yeah, when you give them those guides, it looks so much better. I know that when I first started teaching, if I did something, tried to get creative, it's before I've been here a long time, they all sort of thought it was like, oh, she didn't come prepared today. So you need to show them that you came prepared, and this wasn't just a fill-in activity. This is what I did, and now I expect you to do this. Because if they think you're just filling in, they just don't take it as seriously.
Right, and then even with those, like at the end, you'll have someone whose name wasn't on there, and they'll be like, I didn't get the points when you graded that. You weren't on anybody's paper. Sorry, I know you were present, but you didn't make sure that
I always say,
expectation
part
was
of the instructions that you give them on any assignment is reading the instructions. And for health careers and other areas, it's really important that they read the instructions, because if they're missing, so sometimes they'll be like, oh, like I'll put, say answers are increase or decrease. We deal with a lot of relationships. I will say, for the following questions, type I, with quotes around it, or D. And then they'll put arrows up or arrows down, and I'll take off. And they'll be like, part of taking a test is reading the instructions. And they won't do it again. Sort of like
everybody's name is on the paper after that happens to them once. Again, like kind of just going back towards more of that group work style collaboration is key with really all of these techniques that we talked about. Using Wiki, so I'm not sure if any of you have really used it within Blackboard at all, but things that we've used it for are glossary terms. So if it's really just basic terminology, then we'll either put all of the the key words there, and then they all have to put a definition or add to it. So that does help. Group notes, that's something that I did last time. Let's work together, evolving documents for your e-portfolio. Everybody add to this page. So here's what I lectured on, only bullet points. You add the pictures, you add the definitions, you make the connections, and then you can actually print these as a Word doc. So they're really, really nice.
Yeah, it's sort of like all of them combining, so they don't have to rewrite their notes after lecture, but each of them contribute. And yes, some of are pickier and want to do certain parts themselves, but it's all in a Word doc, so it's it's editable.
Right. And this can be graded. So I set mine up to grade, and then I can see every change, and it points it out for me that each person has contributed to that document. So, and that's through Blackboard. So I'm kind of a big fan of that. It's my new thing. And it could be just for projects as well. It doesn't have to be graded. So instead of a discussion board, this is the area where they could communicate or add or get rid of information. Yes?
I'm not sure what Wiki is, but what you're saying sounds like an issue I have. So if I have 17 students, and I would have to bring in like 5 or 6 cards for them to get into small groups of at least 3.
Right.
But I never have the prepping to do that. So I'll put like 3 or 4 cards, and there's groups of like 4 with maybe 1 or 5. And I can see that they're doing the work on their card, and they're doing what I asked them to do, or maybe I just made up a quick outline. But I could tell that some students are just hanging back, and I'll try to engage, and I'll sometimes I say like no ball hogging, because one guy just wants to take over the whole thing. But how would I try to grade them individually? I'd have to give them some kind of rubric.
They could do a summary of what they did.
A summary.
Yeah, through a wiki.
Yeah.
In that respect.
And well, and even for
We also
that,
have them evaluate each other.
yeah, evaluating each other. So like an actual in-person one, you mean, like a way of applying it, or
Just when
like-
it comes to grade, basically
How to grade.
I'm so new that like, if they were there, get the points. I'll just give them all 10 or 20 points. But I feel like honestly, some of them don't deserve
Can you
all
break the
points.
skills down to smaller skills that each person have a specific?
I could
So
probably
you're
do
to
some
take
of that.
the head of this thing off.
Yeah.
You are going to be responsible for taking the part and cleaning it. You're going to be the reinstalling person, and this last person's going to make the adjustments to make sure it's working. I just made that up, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, like each thing does have maybe 5 or 6 steps.
Yeah.
So I just give each of them
Yes.
one step.
one role, and or you could have them assign their own role. Here are your 5 roles. You pick who's going to do what, and then you could do a rubric based on that even.
Yeah.
As far as grading.
Is that what the wiki is? Or?
No,
She
wiki.
can show you wiki.
I can
when
show
we're
you
all done.
wiki.
Mhm.
Yeah, after we're done, I can show you what a wiki looks like and kind of how you can use it in Blackboard. Do you use Blackboard a lot? Are you learning
I'm
to use
getting
it?
to. I
Getting
mean,
there?
I have a grading system on it now.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I can show you one of our previous wikis if you'd like. Encouraging inquiry-based learning. So again, this isn't really a new topic either, but encouraging questions in class. I think I finally mastered the control of this, because this can go really crazy with them in the middle of your lecture raising their hand or jumping in trying to ask questions when you have such an open format. But making sure that the students know it's okay to ask questions. Everybody, you know the saying, "Oh, I know it's a stupid question," and I always follow that there are no stupid questions. The only stupid ones are the ones you don't ask, and those aren't questions then. So it's very, very important that we make sure our students feel comfortable asking those questions, because they're valuable, but don't always answer. Okay, that's part of that inquiry-based learning, is directing them to investigate and report so they can learn to be resourceful. Like Deb said, we're not always going to be there. And that even when they try and help each other too much, there becomes a point where it's like, okay, but she might not always be there. He might not always be there to help you. So how would you figure that out elsewise or otherwise? So sometimes what I've done to kind of encourage this is 2-part discussion boards, where like this is an example where they put a very, very specific question, but they couldn't see the forum until they put their question. And then the second half of this is they had to answer another student's question from a book citing it. So they had to go and investigate a little bit for their classmates as well. And I found like this has really helped them. Okay, well, this person found it on this page. Their questions were being answered, not by me, so they're looking a little bit deeper at the material. So that's just kind of one way. There's plenty of ways, though, that you could encourage them to look a little bit deeper or look a little bit further when it comes to that stuff. This is really that stations-based learning. So this taps into each individual learning style. So there's many, many learning styles. Traditional based lecture is very, very focused. But the idea behind us changing up our class was that, you get your normal lecture that's going to help your auditory learners, but having the worksheet, having to write the material, the models, getting your hands on it, videos, watching it for the visuals. And then the Anatomage is a virtual anatomy table. If you're not familiar with it, but it's pretty much a huge tablet of
Like
just
digital
slices.
cadaver.
Digital cadaver. It is amazing, but even that. So trying to tap into as many ways of learning as possible so that it would hit home with just about every student.
And I know that you said you teach psychology, correct?
I do.
So in psychology, you could have 3 different principles or theories on whatever the topic is, and have them delve into those 3 and present something in that. So you could break it down. It doesn't have to be something physical they touch, which would be harder in yours, but breaking down the theory or breaking down a principle, these are the 3 principles, which do you acclimate best to and why, and something like that.
Yeah. So just trying different ways of approaching it. Critical thinking activities. Critical thinking is big, but a couple of things that we use: scenario evaluations. So here is a scenario. You tell me why this occurred, or you tell me how to fix it, or you tell me your diagnosis, things like that. as far as letting them think beyond it. Here's what it is. Now you tell me why this would be, or you tell me what theory this applies to. So that really gives them the ability to do that critical, deeper thinking, discussions. It's kind of been a resounding thing.
They fight these, you know. I have 5 children, and my last is in his last year of college, and he's in sports management, and he had to take a psychology class. And he said, I knew everything, but they kept telling me about people walking down the street and what were they were scenarios. Yeah. And I said, well, did you read all the scenarios in the book when they gave you examples? He was like, well, no, that they don't test on that. I'm like, well, they are, obviously, so let's work on that. And so they do fight it. They just want to know the facts, like, check off the box. I know this, I know this, I know this. So broadening their horizons. And let's all remember that through assessment, if we checked off critical thinking on our course outlines, you're going to have to answer, how are you making them critically think? And we're developing a rubric on that assessment that anybody who says they're using critical thinking will have to show how they are.
Right. And scenarios and case studies kind of go hand in hand. Case studies, I feel, are probably a little more relevant to health careers, but the same as a scenario in other areas. All right. And then I know I have a sample one of kind of something that we added. So we've added critical thinking for the past few years to our lab, every single lab. They have one. This one was, we watched a video, and then I let them for a few minutes. I put this up. I said, go ahead and answer all the questions, and then we have open discussion about it. So, like, why was that video important? I'm not going to tell you why it was important. Connect what we've learned to the value that it had. You know, what are some of the different things I hit on, like Krukowski, which was something that I wanted to make sure they understood. So those are just some examples. And then another one that I did one time was, we watched one, what are some things that you would change? You know, it wasn't a perfect interaction with a patient. Okay, we all could recognize that. Now, how would you change that interaction to make them think a little further?
You as well. If you have them start to video doing a simple task and then putting it up, and in health careers we do where you sit and talk about things and how could it improve for the next time. And so they learn a really nice, not as far as criticizing each other, like, you know, you did that, you were having trouble with this on your video. Somebody taught me this has really helped me. And they share and exchange by watching. And so that would be something, yeah.
So maybe when you have a group that's in the car, you have, a group that's got their phones, you could ask, all right, well, so-and-so is working on it, I need one of you to video it and take a recording, a video of what they're doing.
And then as a group, they can sit and evaluate each other, right?
Yeah.
In a safe environment, no judgment.
Right. So, yeah.
Good with this?
Yep. Fill the board. So this is just one that I use.
She is the expert at this.
I love filling the board. And my seniors love doing it too. I'll tell you a story about that. But filling the board is just, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go over material that we've already covered. I'll just fill the board with questions or drawings and toss markers and go sit down until it's filled up, or stand to the side and be like, oh, that's not quite right. And I'll erase it as I walk by, and have them make the corrections. And allow the time for that. Again, in a non-judgmental way. Notes are there, all your resources are there, your friends are there, like working together. I let them take pictures at the end, as long as they ask me, because I want that respect of just not snapping pictures of whatever I do in class. But usually it's on the board with markers. I do sometimes just pull up the smart board, and we use those ones as well. But when you have 20-something students in front of you, it's easier just to toss them all markers. Or just hand out 5 and you say pass one on until everybody's completed a question. But they really, again, kind of love this because it recaps last lecture before we jump into the new lecture. And I was running short on one day, and my seniors are like, do you want us to go fill the board? Here you go.
For the freshmen.
For the freshmen.
Yeah,
for my freshmen.
Seniors saw the freshmen were in a class and said, Krysti, we had somebody not here, so we were all sort of running around. And they said, do you want us to do fill the board? So they went in and wrote all the answers and things for the freshman students.
They wrote the questions.
Yeah, they wrote questions and made their own, as if they were Krysti.
Which made me so happy, because then I knew that they remembered stuff I taught them like a year ago. And they had really good questions. And the freshmen are like, why are you doing this? Did you, you know?
I think they were more amazed at how do they still know this?
How do they even know
this? We all know the mentality of, taking a history class, taking a psychology test, and taking it and saying, I'll never have to look at that again. Okay, and we want them to bring these principles across. There is no wasted education. So.
All right, so other ones, using technology to your advantage. So I have Kahoots on here, simulators if they have them, and encouraging those textbook website accesses. So a lot of the textbooks have games or some form of interactive tool that they can use to better understand terminology or anatomy or physics, depending on what they're going through. But the Evolve has a ton of resources for students, even if it's just extra pictures that they can go through. That's okay. So that's helpful. Simulators, if you have them, they're wonderful, wonderful tools. Kahoots is something that's free. Do you guys use Kahoots?
I'm still learning that.
Still learning it? Yeah, I know. I made one literally in 5 minutes yesterday, just kind of for here. It is free, but then there's so many limitations when it's free. If you pay for it, then of course you get all the fun perks. But it is a pretty easy tool as far as one that's available to use. I think that's our last slide, so you probably could copy that link. Oh, yeah. See if we're able to do it. I could just show you kind of an idea.
We're going to try to have you guys do it. But
yeah. You can have students with Kahoots on their cell phone, answering quiz questions and drilling and things like that. So it's a little bit fun because we always say put your phone away, put it on vibrate, don't take it out. So it gives them, a little bit of time to kind of play a little bit. We'll see if it goes.
do you have to sign in?
Nope. I should be able to do it without. I might have to sign in.
That's it right there, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know if I have to.
Play as guest. Go back. There was a play as a guest button. There.
But I think it has to give you a code. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's for them. All right, I'll go back. I'm going to just sign in real quick, and then I'll just kind of show you. You can see that there's multiple questions here. These are ones like one that I created. I actually was able to just look through their pool, though, of questions. I typed in the search a topic, and one of them was ultrasound. One of them was for English. If you're citing a source, they have like a bank of questions related to all these different topics, and it's a fun little game, physics related, things like that, how to cite. But I'll see if I can sign in so you guys can kind of get an idea of the things you can do.
Do you want me to explain our next activity while you do
Yes.
that?
While I
Okay.
do this.
So we thought there was going to be 7 or 8 people here today. Obviously, some people weren't able to make it, but I'm going to break you guys into 2 groups. And Nancy, I'm going to have you work with him just because it's more hands-on type of activity. And I'll have you ladies work together.
Thank you.
So join a member of the group that teaches in an area similar to yours. Create an activity of your choice. So think of one thing, what's the objective? And plan how you're going to try to incorporate it into your classroom. Each of you might have a little different approach, write both of them down, or think of one together. And then we'll talk about this. Again, I sort of put down the little points to remember, set your expectations, promote respect when you're developing this activity, and what would the roles be that you would assign to them, and then how would they give you reflection and feedback. And so just think of something, and you guys can do an activity even though what you're doing is the same, but how would you apply it, and you know a theory or a principle. And so do that while she does that. Just What's your assignment, Krysti? I was going to bring up your test. Oh, I thought you had the thing open. That little cutie thing. Yeah.
Do you teach PHI?
I do teach.
So maybe we could do
Find
something
it.
from pre-November that would maybe.
Do you want the entire project or just the quiz?
The quiz.
By the class based on the 4 different stages of PHI. Because obviously I teach development as well.
And then I'll just show it.
It sure does.
So. So maybe they have to kind of like maybe describe the level.
While you guys do that, I'm just gonna sort of stop around, they can get this up on a big computer, but this is a game that
Like we just
Krysti
did this. where we had to
created through Captivate.
water pump off of that. But to get to the